You said. My grandfather was a teacher. However, alongside teaching, he was also involved in farming, cattle rearing, and sometimes fishing as a hobby. One more thing he could do was harvest honey from beehives whenever they formed on trees in the village. Today's incident is related to honey harvesting. There is a belief among the villagers that beehives become full of honey on new moon nights or full moon nights, and that is the best time to collect honey. One evening, one of my grandfather's friends came to inform him about a beehive and said, "It must be cut down tonight, or someone else might take it before us." So, the two of them prepared for the task, gathering torches, scissors, a container for honey, and other necessary items. They waited until it was late at night. Around 10 p.m., my grandfather, his friend, and another companion set out toward their destination. The beehive was located deep inside a dense forest near the Brahmaputra River. It is worth mentioning that this forest was so feared by the locals that even during the daytime, people hesitated to enter. As they neared the jungle, they suddenly caught the scent of a goat. Smelling it, my grandfather's companion said, "The smell of a goat is not a good sign. Let's go back and return tomorrow with more people." However, my grandfather's friend was adamant. He insisted on harvesting the honey that very night. Another thing to note was that both my grandfather and his friend were devout men who regularly prayed. After some thought, they lit 2 torches and entered the jungle. The deeper they went, the stronger the goat-like smell became. All 3 of them were afraid, though none admitted it to each other. The surroundings were pitch dark, the strong scent filled the air, and the eerie silence of the jungle made the atmosphere even more unsettling. They cautiously moved forward. At last, without any obstacles, they reached the tree where the beehive was located. But upon reaching there, they froze. The tree was a medium-sized buckle Spanish cherry tree. However, not far from it stood a massive banyan tree, its aerial roots hanging thickly. The sight of it alone was enough to send chills down their spines. Moreover, there were many eerie stories about that banyan tree in the village. Although my grandfather was an educated man, deep down, he felt a creeping fear. He turned to his friend and said, "Rahim, I don't think we can handle this alone. Let's go back." Just then, he heard a whisper in his ear. "Go back." However, neither of his companions seemed to hear anything. My grandfather started feeling an overwhelming sense of fear, but his friends were stubborn. They said, "If you're scared, just look down and hold the bucket and scissors. I'll climb up." With that, Rahim started climbing the tree. Once again, my grandfather heard the whisper, "Go back. Danger." But he couldn't bring himself to say anything to them. He thought, Rahim might assume I am making excuses out of fear, and their other companion, who was already terrified, might even faint. By then, Rahim had reached the top near the beehive, while their other companion was halfway up the tree. Both held torches in their hands. The smoke from the torches made the bees buzz angrily. My grandfather stood below, holding a torch, a bucket, and scissors. Although lighting a torch was forbidden, because it could provoke the bees, he felt he had no other choice. Rahim then called out, "Rashid, hand me the bucket and scissors." At that very moment, my grandfather heard someone whisper right into his ear, "Run, Rashid, run. Look around you. Run." This time, my grandfather turned his flashlight toward the banyan tree and saw something horrifying. The aerial roots that had been hanging still were now floating in the air as if they were alive, moving as if they were about to wrap around them. The surrounding bamboo trees had bent unnaturally, as if bowing down toward them. Seeing this, my grandfather let out a loud scream. The man who was halfway up the tree immediately leaped down and started screaming as well. Rahim, who was on top, scrambled down as fast as he could. They abandoned everything and began reciting verses from the Quran as they rushed out of the jungle. As they ran, it felt as though a storm had erupted inside the forest, shaking everything violently. When they finally made it out of the jungle, they heard a voice behind them whispering, "You barely survived.